Hi, everybody. Give me just a second. Okay, so we're back. Thank you for your patience. All right, so I wanted to make a video today to explain how to use cladograms. Some people pronounce these cladograms. That's really up to you. I pronounce it cladograms. All right. So what is a cladogram anyway? It's this picture right here. Oops, I've got my pen on. Um, it's that picture right there. And what is it used for? It's used for evaluating evolutionary relationships. So, what kinds of things are we going to notice? So let's take a look. So we have these organisms. We have the lancelet, the lamprey, the tuna, the salamander, the turtle, and the leopard. So those are the organisms that we are going to place on our cladogram or that are placed for us. And let's look at the characteristics. So when you're using a cladogram, what you're going to do is you're going to start at the simplest organism, okay? And you don't have to list that initial trait. In this case, it might be something like they're all eukaryotes. They all have a nucleus, right? So that one probably will not be listed. And then we go to our first area of divergence, our first branch. All right, let me turn this thing off. There we go. So um, the lancelet is the simplest organism on your cladogram. It's also the oldest organism on your cladogram. How do you know that? You know that because it's the first, right? So it's the first organism and it is the oldest organism. It is also the simplest organism. So if you look, all these other traits that are being listed, the lancelet has none of those. So that would be why it's the simplest. Now, what's up with the branch? What's up with that? So that would be a common ancestor here. So in this region right there, that is a common ancestor. And what that means is that there was an organism at one time that all of these animals had in common. And it's usually an extinct organism. And at that point, life diverged for whatever reason. And the lancelet went this direction. And the um, the rest of the organisms went another direction. Okay, so the lamprey, what's next? So the lamprey, the tuna, the salamander, the turtle, and the leopard, they all have something in common. And that would be, let me change colors. That would be this vertebral column right there. What's a vertebral column? You have a spine, yes? So your spinal bones are called vertebrae, and so you have a column of those. And it could be, well, I won't get into that. But anyway, so you all have a vertebral column from this point forward. So the lamprey has one, the tuna has one, the salamander has one, the turtle has one, and the leopard has one as well. Okay, so once again, we have a common ancestor at the branch, right? And then we keep on. So the tuna has developed, well, actually, not just the tuna, everything from the tuna forward has now developed a jaw. So in geologic time, we discussed how fish originally did not have a jaw, and then it took tens of millions of years to develop that jaw. And so for a while, fish could just swim with an open mouth, just and it would just try to catch like a net all the krill that would swim into that. So it took a long time for us to get the jaw. And then from this point forward, all the organisms on the list have jaws. So the tuna has a jaw, salamander, turtle, leopard, all have jaws. All right, so let's keep going. Um, there's another common ancestor listed here, right? Once again, that would be something that is it's an ancestor we have in common. So that could be like a great, 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 great grandmother for all of these organisms. And from this point forward, the salamander has, or I'm sorry, the tuna has diverged, and from the route that the salamander, turtle, and leopard will continue to take. All right, so what developed after that common ancestor? What is something that the rest of the organisms have that that common ancestor did not have? And that would be 4 walking legs. So clearly the tuna has no legs, right? Fish do not. And so from that common ancestor onward, these organisms developed 4 walking legs. So let's keep going. Okay, so then we have another common ancestor here. So what is something that the salamander does not have, but the turtle and the leopard do? Well, an amniotic egg. So the salamander does not have an amniotic egg. It would have to lay its eggs in the water. Frogs also do this in order to maintain the moisture level needed to keep that egg intact. Turtles do not need to lay their eggs in the water. Leopards, as you know, of all mammals, keep their eggs internally in the ovaries. And so we, as mammals, don't lay eggs at all. We choose to, well, we don't choose, but our bodies keep those with us at all times. So we don't have to lay them. Okay, so next up, the big development is that amniotic egg. That is just a huge step in development. I know we just spoke about it and we've talked about it in class, but being able to really break that tie from the sea, from water to land, was huge for organisms. You can explore a whole new area with new food and likewise new predators eventually. But just there's more room to build shelters. There's different food sources. Variation can really take off in a new way. So having that amniotic egg was huge. Okay, so next up we have our last common ancestor on our cladogram, and we branch. So the turtle goes one direction and the leopard goes the other. So what is something that the leopard developed that the turtle did not develop? Hair, obviously. Okay, fur. So fur is an awesome insulator. It helps keep the body warm. Yeah, so mammals have fur. That's pretty much all there is to it. Now, the turtle and the leopard have amniotic eggs, 4 walking legs, jaws, and a vertebral column, all in common. But something that they don't have in common is hair. Okay, so that's really all that there is to a cladogram. They're pretty simple. So let's go ahead and answer these questions together, okay? Which characteristic was the last to form? All right, so we go back and we see which characteristic was the most recent to form, the last to form, and that would be hair. It'll be the characteristic that maybe the last organism has that nothing else has. It'll be the very last characteristic on your cladogram. Okay, let me change colors. Which 2 species are more closely related, the lamprey and turtle or leopard and turtle? Well, let's see. Here's the lamprey, and the turtle is way over here, and it looks like the only thing that those 2 have in common is that they have a vertebral column. So they just have the one thing in common. All right, now let's check out the leopards and the turtles. So the leopards and the turtle. Here's the turtle, here's the leopard. They have 1, 2, 3, 4 things in common. So clearly that would be the answer for which 2 species are more closely related. Which species is the oldest? Ooh, the lancelet. We answered that in the first part of our lecture. The lancelet is the oldest. What do salamanders, so let's find those. Salamanders and turtles and leopards all have in common. So we just go back down the list. Let me erase our screen for us. So we just go back down the list. Okay, so salamanders, turtles, and leopards, they all have 4 walking legs. They all have jaws, and they all have a vertebral column. All right, which characteristic came about first? So you just travel down that list. You head down the list until you find the very first characteristic. And there it is, the vertebral column. So that would be the first characteristic to come about. Which species is the youngest? So here we go in the opposite direction and we go up that cladogram until we find the very last organism, the most complex organism, and that would be the leopard. The leopard is the most complex and it takes a long time in evolution for all those traits to develop. So the leopard would be our youngest species on this cladogram. Okay, that's it. That's all we have for Cladogram. I will be making a Google form for you to fill out, and it will just have the questions that are on our worksheet here. And all you will have to do is just input your answers, and it will give you points, and it will also count you as present. So anyway, if you have any questions, feel free to email me as usual, or drop a comment on our Google Classroom. It was a pleasure teaching you guys again today. I hope this is working well for everyone. Have a great day.